In the last tutorial, we saw that 1 was equal to the string 1 inside the if statement. And what we're doing in this tutorial, and I don't even know if you can call it a tutorial, but we're just going to do some experimentation with converting strings to numbers. So let's get started. So we're trying to figure out how the interpreter did this. And how I'm going to go about this is I haven't consulted the JavaScript documentation or the Mozilla website or anything like that. I'm just purely doing my own experimentation with it and trying to learn something along the way. So we have a variable 5 and it's set to the string 5. We're outputting its type, and then the next thing we're doing is we're running this value of method on the 5 and checking the type of that. And you can see that's right here. And we have a string in both cases. Now the value of method is usually used on objects in order to return the primitive data type. But in this case, we're already starting out with the primitive data, which is a string. So this is useless in this situation because we're just converting a string to a string, and that didn't do anything. So let's keep going with this. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to run the parseInt function on 5. Okay, this isn't a method of a string or whatever. This is a function. We're running this function on it, and we're checking the type of this. Let's see what that is. And we got a number. Now we didn't change 5's value here. All we did is we ran the parseInt function on this data and then we output it. And we can see that. So what we're going to do is we're just going to check the type of 5 right now. And you can see that 5 is a string. So this didn't change the this didn't change its value. We just output whatever running the parseInt function on this did, number, but we see 5 is still a string. Now what we're doing is we are whatever is returned by this parseInt function on 5, we're putting that into 5. Let's do that, and then we're outputting 5's type again, and now we see that 5 is a number. So it was different here because we ran this function and whatever it returned, we stored it in 5. So we overwrote 5's value, and now 5 is a number. Here we have a new variable a, and it's set to the number 5 plus the string 5. Let's check that out. And we got 55. Actually, we just got the string 55. So what it did was it concatenated on this 5 to this one, and we got 55, and this type is going to be string now. Now we're creating a new variable. B is set to the string 5. So let's take a look at this if statement. So if the number 5 is equal to this b value, which is a string, then we're going to output b as a type of b. Let's do that. And we can see that b is a string. So here this 5 was converted to a number. If 5 equals 5, this will return true. That's how we were able to do this. So we can see that the JavaScript interpreter, it did convert this. It got the numeric value of this string, put it in here, then this was able to return true, and then we were able to output this. So what we can see is what the browser's interpreter did here was very transient. It converted it to a number here, but then when we output its type inside the body of this, we saw that it's still a string. Okay, let's keep going. So one note here is that, of course, a Boolean is needed inside these parentheses. What is needed here is true or false, and whatever we put in here it has to evaluate to, it will always evaluate to true or false. Okay? The interpreter tries to convert the string to a number. How does it do it? And that's what we're looking in this tutorial. Now we're creating a new variable c, and we're setting that to 5 cats. And then we're running the parseInt function on c. Let's take a look at that. And we got 5. So the reason why I did this parseInt thing is because I wanted, basically what we're doing is we're experimenting to see what is the interpreter doing internally when it takes a string like 1 and makes its value equal to 1, and that returns true. The string 1 is equal to 1. So I wanted to see if it was doing something like the parseInt. So we're going to test for that. And here we're saying if 5 is equal to c, c is a string of 5 cats. So if this returns true, then we know that the interpreter used something like parseInt to do it. Let's check that out. And we can see the interpreter didn't use parseInt. So when we use parseInt here, we're running this function on C. We're not changing C's value. But when we run this on C, 5 cats will become the number 5. But when we checked if they're the same, if 5 is equal to the string 5 cats, this didn't return true, so we know that the interpreter is not using anything like parseInt. The next thing I did was we're creating a new variable d, and it's set to the string 5 with 1 space after. And if 5 is equal to d, then we're going to output this. 5 is equal to d. So that we saw that when we had something ridiculous like 5 cats, they weren't equivalent. They didn't have the same value. Now let's try with this. And it says 5 is equal to d. So it didn't matter that we had 1 space after here. It's still, when it did this comparison, this string 5 plus a space was converted to the number 5. This returned true, and then we output this. We can try adding more spaces on here and running that again, and it still says 5 is equal to d. Okay, let's put that back to 1 space. The next thing we're doing, very similar, we have E. Now we're putting a space in front of it, and we're seeing if this is equal or not. Let's refresh. 5 is equal to d. So it didn't matter if we had some spaces in front, it's still equal. We can try and put some spaces on the back too, and that's still equal. So it doesn't matter how many spaces are in the front or what are in the back, this will convert. When it does this comparison, this gets converted to a number, and this returns true. In our next example, f is set to the string of 5 space 5. And we want to see if 55 is going to be equal to this. Let's check that out. And here it says 55 is not equal to f. So it didn't matter how many spaces we had on the back or the front, but even having 1 space in the middle, now when the interpreter tried to convert this to a number, whatever it did, it didn't return the number 55. So here it says 55 is not equal to f. So far it seems from our experimentations that it's trimming off white space from the front and it's trimming off white space from the back, but it's not doing it from the middle. Let's keep going. And we've looked at this one already. We know that this is going to return true. Okay, 5 is equal to g. Let's just delete that. And we can, let's leave that how it is. Okay, 55 is not equal to f. So now I know that it's trimming off white space from the the front or the back. Actually, it's not necessarily doing that, but that's what it seems like so far from our experiments. So what I have here is we have a regular expression. I found it online from this guy, and what we're doing here is we're creating a variable called trim, and trim is set to, I don't know where my G went. What happened to that? Oh, actually we need this. Okay, so yeah, G is set to 5 with space on the front, and we know this is going to be equal from the experiments we already did. 5 is equal to G. So what we're doing here is we're creating a new variable trim, and trim is this G variable, or this string right here, and we're running this replace method on it. And the replace method takes a regular expression as its argument. Well, the first argument is a regular expression, which we haven't looked at yet, and the next argument is what do you want to replace it with. So here we're replacing it with an empty string. So we're trying to make this 5 into like this. Okay, so that's what we're trying to do, trim the white space off the front and the back. And then we're outputting G's length, and then we're outputting trim's length, and this is just gonna show you that this this function worked. So we saw G's length is 3, but now trim's length, after we ran this method on it and then we returned that to trim, it returned a length of 1. So what I was thinking might be happening was that this sort of thing was happening on the number in order to get rid of whatever white space is going on. We can add some more stuff, and now you can see that, let's just comment this out first. So here you can see G's length changed, but after we ran this regular expression on it, this replace method, that the length was 1. So it did get rid of all the white space off the front and the back. So what I was thinking was it was doing some sort of method like this on the data, and then it was converting it to a number. But another possibility is this one. So here we have H, and it's set to the string 4 with a space on the front of the back, and then we're resetting H's value to H minus 0. Then we're checking the type of that, and then we're outputting H, and let's see that. So here we can see that now here H is a string, but after we set H to this expression, H was converted to a number, and the number is 4. So just by doing a simple math expression like this, we didn't even need to use this replace method, and it trimmed off the white space and it converted it from a string to a number. In our last example, we have I is set to 4 space 4, and then we're doing I is equal to I minus 0. We're outputting its type, and then we're writing it out. And we got an error. Is it because of this? Okay. So in this case it didn't work. It didn't work when there's a space in the middle. And that makes sense because now this is just turned into a sentence. It's not a number anymore. This is like a phrase. I was set to 4 space 4. I is set to I minus 0. Output the type and write it out. And we can see that the type of was a number, which I didn't believe, because how could 4 space 4 become a number? And then when I actually checked the number, we saw that it's not a number. So this is an interesting thing in JavaScript, that not a number, the type of not a number is a number. And I was able to find this definition online. So not a number means the specific value cannot be represented within the limitations of the numeric type. And this seemed like a good enough explanation for me, and that was found from Pax Diablo from stackoverflow.com. Thanks for listening.